TV, which all of you don't do, actually. Most of you actually watch some sort of stick and you don't deal with commercials. But if you watch TV, you deal with commercials. Keytruda or any other of the fly by year miracle cures that then 5, 10 years later there's lawyer commercials talking about, did you get this and experience that? You know how that shit goes. It's really fucked up. But if you notice, there's something that you know that seemingly comes from that's in every commercial nowadays. But it's any of these, any one of these Cure-All, Keytruda, Skyrizi, whatever thing they're trying to push, they mention something called Guillain-Barré syndrome, or GBS. And I want to know more about it. So let's see if we can't find find out what we're supposed to know, because that's all I'm gonna look up. I'm not gonna look up Alex Jones's version of it, or which he doesn't have. I'm just saying, or anything that anybody conspiracy is talking about. I'm gonna look up Wikipedia definition and an explanation of GBS, because we should all know, right? It's all about transparency and education, and the last thing we want is some crazy opinions. We're gonna go with the official source, the source that if you were doing a book report for school and you cited that you got this information from Wikipedia, your teacher would be okay with it, because it's the encyclopedia, but it's Wikipedia. To think that, like, I love when people act like, where did you get this from? Online. It's like, oh, did you get yours from a book? Who published that book? Who sponsored all of it? Who wrote all of the shit inside of it? Something like the Encyclopedia Britannicas and shit like that. Go look up the encyclopedia from 30 years ago, from 60 years ago, from 90 years ago. Look up the same thing in each encyclopedia, and you'd be amazed by how many of those things have changed, or how much they've changed over the years. So if you want to pretend that the source isn't good enough because that's your only argument, I mean, that's pretty desperate. So, Guillain-Barré syndrome, Guillain-Barre syndrome, GBS, is a rapid onset muscle weakness caused by the immune system damaging the peripheral nervous system. Isn't that strange? That your immune system would suddenly start attacking your nerves? That's fucking weird. Typically, both sides of the body are involved, and the initial symptoms are changes in sensation or pain, often in the back, along with muscle weakness. Sounds a lot like polio, strangely enough. Both of these things, polio and everything checks the box, especially when you consider the source of these things. Where do these things come from? They both come from the same place. The symptoms may develop over hours to a few weeks, During the acute phase, the disorder can be life-threatening, with about 15% of people developing respiratory muscle weakness, requiring medical ventilation. Gosh, that sounds really familiar, doesn't it? Isn't that weird? Some are affected by changes in the function of the autonomic, there we go, autonomic nervous system, which can lead to dangerous abnormalities in heart rate and blood pressure. Breathing difficulties, heart and blood pressure problems. Onset rapid, weeks to or hours to weeks. Typically triggered by an infection, occasionally by surgery. Not how that works. Although the cause is unknown, gosh, that's strange. The underlying mechanism involves an autoimmune disorder in which the body's immune system mistakenly attacks the peripheral nerves and damages their myelin insulation. Their myelin insulation.
Yeah, it's
Sometimes by an infection, or less commonly by surgery and by the chots, man, the chots. The diagnosis is usually based on the signs and symptoms through the exclusion of alternative causes and supported by tests such as nerve conduction studies and examination of the cerebrospinal fluid. Yikes. Sounds invasive. There are several subtypes based on the areas of weakness, results of nerve conduction studies, and the presence of certain antibodies. It is classified as an acute polyneuropathy. I mean, it's really a strange thing, to think that like when it comes to measles and shit, right? Like measles is irritation. It's uncomfortable. It lasts for a couple weeks at the most, and all but like 99.99995% of people recover from it. People who are already really fucked up and get it, I guess it takes them out, but it's really rare. And there's another measles outbreak happening, which is just weird. But it's same thing with with shingles. I actually had shingles. I to say that where it came from, it's supposedly shingles is triggered by stress, and it was when I first learned that I was going to need surgery on my wrist, and my life was going to be different from now on. It was, and it was also after I had gotten several tests. So, not sure, but it literally, like, I found out I had to get surgery, and I woke up the next day, and we thought a spider had bitten me. It's on my stomach. And we thought, man, that's weird, and it was itchy and shit. And we just figured it was a spider bite, so we just got to sort of deal with it. And unfortunately, this is before we had oils. But it started to get worse, and we didn't really know what the fuck was going on. And my friend, who is dead now, was a medic in the military. And he was like, dude, you got to go to the hospital. And like, if it wasn't for him pushing that we should go to the hospital, I wouldn't have gone. But I ended up getting the antibiotics and all that shit. Like, again, I just wish we were oil people, because I would have just taken the flume and killed it off pretty quickly.
Well, there's oils for shingles.
Right. And I mean, We crazy think that that's what they do. They don't actually do it. They don't actually fix it or cure it or anything. We just
I
pretend
thought
like it.
my mom had a. We thought my mom had a staph infection from the hospital visit that she was at, and the antibiotics the doctor gave her wasn't getting rid of it. So I made her a rollerball for staph, and it started drying it up. It stopped it from spreading immediately, and then it started drying it up. So we thought it was right. Well, the biopsy that the dermatologist did came back and said it was shingles, not staph. So I looked up shingles oils, and a lot of them are very similar to the ones that are for staph. So
Supposedly.
and it fucking killed it. The doctors in the hospital were like, "Fuck yeah, that's whatever you're using, keep using it," because clearly the shit we gave you didn't work. When she went for her follow up, it was pretty awesome.
There's lots of those stories.
Lots of those stories, but that's the most recent one that we had.
But that's, there's no GBS that comes from that.
No, it's tea tree, eucalyptus, lavender, lemon, geranium, and bergamot oils.
Yeah, whatever. But the getting that shit was crazy and it was scary. But it you know, at the end of the day, the shit is a week, 2 weeks, itchy pain. Shingles is painful, hurts. It doesn't just itch. It hurts.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's weird. It's a weird thing. It's like it's
so you're
it's
told
like
to pat it.
whatever. Um, but to think like, okay, so I could potentially have some sort of infection somehow where I get some bumps and it's irritating for a couple of weeks. I might have to take a week off of work or something like that. But then I'll be fine. And according to the system, once you get it, like measles wise, once you get it, you're good. You then have the ability to not get it anymore.
Shingles is the opposite.
Shingles is it can reoccur.
Once you get it, you're more prone to it recurring.
I guess.
That's what they.
Not for me. We haven't seen it yet.
Well, that happened to you after you got one of your surgeries, right? Or
No, it was when I first found out. I was the night I said you weren't paying attention. The day that I learned I was getting surgery, the next morning I woke up and we thought a spider bit me.
Well, you
So that
clearly
was
haven't been that scared or traumatized since.
yeah. The funny thing is I don't remember being like that worried about it. But it must have been. Yeah. But to think like I'm going to risk getting something like GBS, which is lifelong, in order to maybe
GBS will kill you.
not always, but sometimes, yeah.
True GBS, when you get that, when they diagnosed my uncle with it, they told him that it will kill you. It's something that your body slowly,
Right.
dies.
But you can, it's not like that all the time.
We got it wrong. It's not that at all.
Yeah, it's not 100% killer. You have to, it's only like 15% according to them. But you might have other lifelong ailments, weakness in the body, shit might not work right, whatever. Whatever it may be, it will affect you for life. And the protection offered is not guaranteed. They don't say this is 100% effective at preventing these things. As a matter of fact, lots and lots of people who ended up with Novid had the fucking shot.
My brother.
They got it. They get the shot and then 2 weeks later they get sick and they wonder if there's a connection. Or they don't even wonder. They just go about their business.
No, because they were going to get it anyhow. The shot is just going to prevent them from dying from it.
Something. I can't. That logic just.
I heard that time and time again.
I can't understand that at all.
Had I not had that, I would have gotten it so much worse and I could have died from it. No, bitch.
That is just insane.
I heard that so many times.
That is insane. Your body fought it off, and you think it's something else. It's so wild to me. But like I say, to risk it for something that's not even 100% effective, and even if it was, again, to get measles is or shingles or whatever. It sucks, but it's not. I barely remember
I
it.
was thankful that it was shingles and not staph, because staph, you let that shit go, that shit eats
Staph is
off
bad.
your. Oh, it's so bad, it'll kill you for sure. You let that shit go.
But the thing about like that's not worth the risk. Now, if you know, if you could tell me that, if I get this shot, I won't die till at least 90 fucking years old, then hey, maybe. I turn this shit up. The kids turn it back on. I gotta remind him to leave it the fuck off.
But then they won't know when it's 11 o'clock.
Right, because they're not looking at the clock the whole time. We're those bad parents that don't let our kids play video games first thing in the morning. Anyway, we're talking about something that is just crazy to me. In those with severe weakness, prompt treatment with intravenous immunoglobulins or plasmapheresis, together with supportive care, will lead to a good recovery in the majority of cases. Recovery may take weeks to years, with about a third having some permanent weakness. A third. Globally, deaths occur in approximately 7.5% of those affected. Guillain-Barré syndrome is rare, at 1 or 2 cases per 100,000 people every year. Yeah, that's not rare at all. Like, that's not low. 1 to 2 cases per every 100,000. So if there's 8 billion people on the planet, how many 100,000s is 8 billion people? What is that? 800 times? Yeah, 800 times. No, it would be 8,000 times 100,000 would give you 8 billion. So 8,000, at least 8,000 people to 16,000 people every year. And that's just the casualty rate. That's a lot of people. That's a lot more people than I'm comfortable with. I hope I did my math right. The illness that affected President Franklin D. Roosevelt and left him paralyzed from the waist down, which was believed at the time to be polio, may have been Guillain-Barré syndrome, according to more recent research. Holy shit. The syndrome is named after the French neurologist Georges Guillain and Jean-Alexandre Barré, who, together with French physician André Stroll, described the condition in 1916. Gee, that's strange. Oh shit. Oh my god. I'm getting so old, it's unreal. Oh my Jesus. Oh, heavens to Murgatroyd. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Signs and symptoms, causes. 2/3 of people with Guillain-Barré syndrome have experienced an infection before the onset of the condition. Most commonly, these are episodes of gastroenteritis, or a respiratory tract infection. In many cases, the exact nature of the infection can be confirmed. Approximately 30% of cases are provoked by Campylobacter jejuni bacteria, which cause diarrhea. A further 10% are attributed to cytomegalovirus CMV HHV-5. Despite this, only very few people with Campylobacteria or CMV infections develop Guillain-Barré syndrome. 0.25 to 0.65 per 1,000 and 0.6 to 2.2 per 1,000 episodes, respectively. So, literally, like nothing. The idea that there's a connection is ludicrous. It's just chance. You know, that's silly. That's silly to think that they're actually. This is so instead of being able to attribute it to shit, they're making up crazy shit like this. Yeah, 0.25% or 0.25 to 0.65 per thousand. You have to get to 4,000 before you get 1%. Or 4,000 people before you, come on. The strain of Campylobacter involved may determine the risk of GBS. Different forms of the bacteria have different. God damn it. See, look at, they use these words so the average person stays away from it because it's embarrassing to not be able to say these things right and you feel silly. Lip, lip, lipopolysaccharides on their surface, and some may induce illness while others will not. Links between other infections and GBS are less certain. Two other herpes viruses, Epstein-Barr, that's, to me, Epstein-Barr is such a like smack in the face because the Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, William Barr connection is so much deeper than most people realize. Nobody talks about the fact that it was William Barr, Attorney General William Barr, the guy who decided that after seeing footage none of us got to see, that there was no need to do a real thorough investigation into Epstein's death. He saw some footage we didn't get to see. But it was his father that gave Epstein the job at the Dalton Academy, where Epstein didn't have the credits necessary to graduate, to have the degree that that position would require. And the Dalton Academy is this prestigious school that you would think like they would have a ton of job applicants trying to get that professor position. And for some reason, William Barr's father gave that position to an Epstein who didn't have the credentials to warrant that position. And it was one of the last things he did as headmaster of that school was give Epstein the job before he retired into the private sector to go make $1 gazillion. And to think that William Barr didn't recuse himself and say, "Hey, I have too close of a connection to this guy." Obviously, they were friends. If he's the same age as Epstein and his dad, gave Epstein the job and all that, there's a connection there, and that connection never gets explored. But they have one of the herpes, and I know it's named after some older scientists who came up with it. Sure, it just happened to work out that way. The Epstein-Barr virus, which is a herpes virus of all things. Like, it's just so fucking, it's just so scripted. It's part of it. Epstein-Barr virus, HHV-4, and varicella zoster virus, HHV-3, and the bacterium Mycoplasma pneumoniae have also been associated with GBS. GBS is known to occur after influenza and influenza shots, which have been demonstrated to be associated with reduced risk. They're associated with the thing that supposedly reduces the risk of getting the thing. Does that make sense to you? I don't even have to be like, oh, there's no hyperbole needed. I'm just reading you what they want you to know. This isn't, I'm not trying to educate anybody or anything like that. I'm not offering any sort of advice. I'm just saying, this is what they want us to know about this. This is in the commercials I see all the time. I have questions. If anybody can come through and explain it to me in a intelligent, I'm trying my best. The tropical flaviral infections, Dengue fever, and Zika virus have also been associated with episodes of GBS. Gosh, that is some strange, huh? Previous hepatitis E virus infections is more common in people with GBS. Hepatitis is one of those things that only comes from, maybe it doesn't only come from it, sorry. The largest outbreaks known to man of hepatitis were based in places that had instituted some sort of program where they say, an ingredient was tainted, or one of the rigs, the equipment was tainted in the rig. So, whatever. They always have an excuse, but the three largest outbreaks of hepatitis are all associated with the same thing, coincidentally. This is poke ops, the vacation onset. We'll call it vacation. An increased incident in Guillain-Barré syndrome followed influenza immunization that followed this is my favorite, 1976 swine flu outbreak, which, didn't exist, was a completely made up thing. I would love for anybody to come debate me on that one, because it's a pretty well documented story. Like, you can look it up. I'm not going to do it. YouTube doesn't like when I do it. But you should absolutely look up what's up, Algo? You should look up the 1976 swine flu outbreak. And look up David Sensor. Dr. David Sensor. The J son of a single mother who went to the University of Michigan and Harvard and all these different places just on scholarships. He was just getting scholarships out the ding ding. He's the guy that was in charge of the syphilis program, and where they were giving people syphilis without their knowledge, and wanted to continue doing it until finally it leaked to the news, and then he shut the program down. But he refused to shut it down until it was a well-known thing, and there was the pressure from the outside. That was the guy that instituted the program. 46 million people got a vacation, and it was first associated. GBS was first associated with it, and it's also the catalyst for why we today can't sue the government or the vacation manufacturers, because they immediately passed the legislation through once about 4,000 people filed lawsuits and shit. And a bunch of people died, and so they filed 4,000 some people filed lawsuits. So they hurried up, and like when Stormy Daniels is trying to get the legislation through, the defamation shit through, and it just keeps getting hung up in court, hung up in court, hung up in court. But then when her, accusation against Trump or whatever, they just immediately push that one through. Like, the government can work really, really fast when it wants to. And when it was the 76 swine flu thing, the government worked hand in hand with, it's just really like this guy had control over the president. David Sensor wrote a letter to the president, a memo to the president, and basically told him that you need to shut this shit down and institute this vacation program. And the president was like, okay, you say so. Pretty crazy. Okay. Swine flu outbreak. H1N1 A/NJ/76. 8.8 cases per million. Recipients developed it as a complication. 8.8 cases per million. There were 40 million. And this is just on the record. You have to remember, this is 1976. People didn't question the system. The system said, come get the program. And people just ran and did it. And the jet injection method that they used, look that shit up. The story behind jet injection method is terrifying. It's just terrifying. Again, not something I want to go into because it doesn't, it's frowned upon. But I highly suggest you look into it because it will blow your fucking mind. It's a system that inherently transfers material from one person to the next. But to think that 46 million Americans, just Americans, got this thing. So 46 times 8 is reported. Back then, people didn't little thing. And there were no computer systems for the little podunk towns where people went back to and they got this thing. And there's a really cool song about it. There's one guy you should listen to called Vax. Yeah. TBG, baby. TBG. They have 2 songs. Three songs, actually. Vaxxed Part 1, Part 2, and Vaxxed Part 2, Part 2. Go check them out. Great songs. www.the-bilderberg, BILDERBERG-group.com. Free to download. I wish I had that on a button I could just push. Link will be in the description when the video's over. The videos are pretty good too. If you go to the TBG Facebook page, the videos were just recently posted, so you can check those out. The 1976, GBS cases occurred in 362 patients during the 6 weeks after influenza vacation of 45 million persons, an 8.8-fold increase over normal rates. Again, in 76, the people that got scared out in the boonies because the government told them you need to come get this, 46 million, now it's 45. That is just a shit ton of people flocking. 46 million in a 6 weeks after. So 46 million in a very short time frame. People came from out of nowhere, got their shit, and then went back. And these numbers are so low, it's unreal. How could 362 patients cases occur when there were over 4,000 lawsuits filed. The 76 swine flu vacation induced GBS was an outlier. Small increases in incidents have been observed in subsequent vacation campaigns, but not to the same extent. The 2009 flu pandemic vacation against pandemic swine flu virus H1N1 hyphen or slash PDM09 did not cause a significant increase in cases. In fact, studies found a small increase of approximately one case per million vacations above the baseline rate, which is similar to that observed after administration of seasonal influenza vacations over the past several years. Like, that's not comforting. It's not comforting to know that this is a in multiple different variations. It's happening. Even if these numbers are true, which I think they're drastically lower than the actual numbers, it's still way too much. If you're saying it's one case per million, that's still a lot of fucking people. Especially in the 76 case where there was nothing. They exaggerated it in fear case. It was like the COVID dry run. And it was literally based on nothing, admittedly based on nothing. Something tells me you don't believe me, so.
The flu season is upon us. Which type will we worry about this year? And what kind of shots will we be told to take? Remember the swine flu scare of 1976? That was the year the U.S. government told us all that swine flu could turn out to be a killer that could spread across the nation. And Washington decided that every man, woman, and child in the nation should get a shot to prevent a nationwide outbreak, a pandemic. Well, 46 million of us obediently took the shot.
46 million.
And now 4,000 Americans are claiming damages from Uncle Sam amounting to $3.5 billion.
4,000 people? So how could it only be 362 cases if 4,000 people had filed lawsuits? That math doesn't add up.
Because of what happened when they took that shot. By far the greatest number of the claims, 2/3 of them, are for neurological damage or even death, allegedly triggered by the flu shot. We pick up the story back in 1976 when the threat posed by the swine flu virus seemed very real indeed.
This virus was the cause of a pandemic in 1918 and 1919.
He's reading the same script that they read in 2020, which is strange because you would think in 2020 they would have said, hey, don't worry about it. We had this same coronavirus happen in 1976 and we shot it away. It's all good. We vacationed it away. We had this great program. It's 50 years later. We have all this extra advance in technology and knowledge on the thing. Don't worry, people. Just hurry. Just come on in and get your 50-year later updated version of the magic shot and, be on your way. You would think they would have done that, but instead they just skipped it and they read the exact same 1918, 1919, killed 25 million people story.
That resulted in over 500,000 deaths in the United States, as well as 20 million deaths around the world.
20 million.
See how easy it is.
See, this is the jet injection.
Machine was cranked into action to urge all America to protect itself against the swine flu menace. Influenza is
Okay, so this machine, if you look at it, it's just people in a line. They walk up, the nurse rubs alcohol on their arm, they put the machine up to the person's arm, it goes, and then the next person walks up, they don't even clean the machine off. So they're transferring not just whatever's in the thing, the vacation, but the whatever somebody has. Hepatitis was a big one. There was a clinic in the 80s, 84 or something like that, that did they had to use one of those systems to do some sort of administration of a thing, and out of like all the people, like 270 some people ended up with hepatitis because it transfers enough material from one person to another to transfer hepatitis or AIDS or any other crazy thing that was going around that came out of this time after 1976. It's kind of scary when you think like this is what they do. You can see it. It's just people in a line. They're not cleaning it off. They're just, it's crazy.
During major flu epidemics, millions of people are
Okay,
sick.
next.
Thousands die. Well, this year you can get protection. Vaccines are
There you
safe,
go.
easy to take, and they can protect
Wipe the
you
arm
against
off.
flu. So roll up your sleeve.
Shoot. There's no cleaning. Did you see that?
One of those who did roll up her sleeve was
I'm going to do the Judy Roberts thing. I just want to get to the meat and potato. It's just a regular person who was unfortunately infected by it.
Bunch. Judy, why did you take the flu shot?
I'd never taken any other flu shots, but I felt like this was going to be a major epidemic. And the only way to prevent a major epidemic of a really deadly variety of flu was for everybody to be immunized.
Where did this so-called deadly variety of flu, where did it first hit back in 1976? It began right here at Fort Dix in New Jersey in January of that year when a began to complain of respiratory ailments, something like the common cold. An army doctor here sent samples of their throat cultures to the New Jersey Public Health Lab to find out just what kind of bug was going around here. One of those samples was from a Private David Lewis who had left his sickbed to go on a forced march.
Forced
Private
march. He
Lewis
was
had
already
collapsed
sick.
on that march, and his sergeant had revived him by mouth-to-mouth resuscitation.
Didn't
But
get sick.
the sergeant showed no signs of illness. A few days later, Private Lewis died.
If this disease is so potentially fatal.
Did you hear that? So where it came from was a guy that was sick already, was forced to go on a march. He was in his sick bed, but they forced him out of bed, made him go on this march. During the march, he passed out. He collapsed. He was revived by his platoon leader, whatever, who gave him mouth to mouth, and then he was transported by a few of the other boys there, like 4 other guys. And none of them got sick, but they were quarantined anyway because for some reason they immediately thought to quarantine. Which, again, just doesn't make sense. But they sent these cultures out that were David Sensor got his hands on it. They found out that it was nothing, but they changed the wording and made it so it sounded like it was a lot worse than it was. The one private that supposedly died is the only one. So it was clearly it was something, but it wasn't a fucking sickness that, you know, it wasn't what we were sold it was. That just somebody died. People just die all the time. You know, just out of the blue, they just fucking die. They just stop working and they die. Young people too that you wouldn't expect. It's always been that way. Some people just shut off. But this is hang on.
That's going to kill a young, healthy man. A school teacher doesn't have prayer.
The New Jersey lab identified most of those soldiers' throat cultures as the normal kind of flu virus going around that year, but they could bug touring ailments, something like the common cold back in 1976.
Oh.
And those 4 other soldiers who recovered. A few days later, they got the verdict, swine flu. Sent those cultures to the Federal Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, Georgia for further study.
David Censored.
A few days later, they got the verdict, swine flu. But that much publicized outbreak of swine flu at Fort Dix involved only Private Lewis, who died, and those 4 other soldiers who recovered completely without the swine flu shot.
If I had
Hear that?
at that time that the boy had been in a sick bed, got up, went out on a forced march, and then collapsed and died, I would never have taken the shot.
The rationale for our
Here he is.
recommendation was not on the basis of the death of a single individual, but it was on the basis that when we do see a change in the characteristics of the influenza virus, it is a massive public health
totally lying.
in this country.
His body language suggests
The
it.
head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, is now in private industry. He devised the swine flu program, and he pushed it. You began to give flu shots to the American.
I hear you're leaving. The one dude said that you're going up to upper management. Congratulations. Oh. Okay, because if you leave without saying goodbye, I'm going to find you. Thank you.
People, 76, October 1st. By that time, how much change in the characteristics of the...
Or should I?
You should.
Okay. All right. I need to change them. Quit repeating, I guess. Oh, Lord have mercy. Anyway, so...
Influenza virus, it is a massive public health problem in this country.
Dr. David Censored, then head of the CDC, the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, is now in private industry. He devised the swine flu program, and he pushed it. You began to give flu shots to the American people in October of 76, October 1st. By that time, how
October 1st.
many cases of swine flu around the world had been reported?
Several reported, but none confirmed. There have been Australia that were reported by the press, by the news media. There were cases in
None confirmed. Did you ever uncover any...
Did you hear that? He's talking about phantom bullshit. There were several there were several cases reported but none of them were confirmed. Angela Williams, Jesus Christ. Can you hear this shit? I'm live. Seriously.
other outbreaks of swine flu? Anywhere in the world? By the news media, there were cases in... None confirmed. Did you ever uncover any other outbreaks of swine flu? Anywhere in the world? No.
No.
Now, nearly everyone was to receive the shot in a public health facility.
No. You guys realize that shit? This guy was the head of the program. He's admitted on TV that there was literally, they made it up. He was in charge of making it up. He was handsomely rewarded for doing so. How is that guy not regarded as like a criminal? I mean, you know, known 4,000 plus cases of people filing lawsuits. However many unknown people actually were affected by this or died of this, this guy's directly responsible. He's dead. He died a few years ago, I believe. But how does this work? And look at, so they're showing the the cows all standing in a line go,
Where a doctor might not be present. Therefore, it was up to the CDC to come up with some kind of official consent form, giving the public all the information it needed about the swine flu shot. This form stated that the swine flu vaccine had been tested. What it didn't say was that after those tests were completed, the scientists developed another vaccine. And that was the one given to most of the 46 million who took the shot.
did you hear that? How do you get away with that? How do you create something, get it tested and get it approved, and then that approval carries over into something that completely different? The one that got approved isn't the one that people got. What? How does... See, this is the kind of shit where it's like I always wish I was wrong. I wish it was more difficult to find how fucked up this is, right? Like this is just insane. What are we you know, what are we doing here where we this is how it works. It's right in front of our faces. It's well known. Like, how does everyone just continue to believe it? They're going to do it again this fall. Sears, I believe it's going to be called. SEERS. Sudden something, respiratory something. Guys, this is nuts. And because of this, you can't sue the government or the manufacturers. This is what got that legislation passed. Most of the lawsuits just died in legislation where they went for so long, or people were like guaranteed some money but then they never got it or something like that. The thing where you can't sue them anymore just went right through.
That vaccine was called X53A. Was X53A ever field tested?
Look at that liar.
I can't say. I would have to.
It wasn't. But I don't know.
Suddenly,
You're in charge of the program.
The records I have.
The shot. But
can you believe it? It's like they're saying, this might fuck you up, but you really need it. We promise you really need it. You have to do your patriotic duty to prevent everybody else from dying. You need this. Here's a consent form. And then afterwards, you're like, I had no idea this was going to do this to me. And they're like, yeah, but you signed a consent form. Do you realize how, that's bully shit? That is some bully shit. You're signing something that you have no idea what you're actually signing. And you're being bullied into taking it because, they're plucking all the right strings. Your patriotic strings, your heartstrings with your family, your fear, your responsibility as an American. It's such a manipulation that then they go, oh, well, you signed the thing. You said you knew.
No, I had never heard of any reactions other than a sore arm, fever, this sort of thing.
Judy Roberts' husband, Gene, also took the shot.
Yes, I looked at that document. I signed it. Nothing on there said I was going to have a heart attack or get Guillain-Barré, which I never heard of.
What if people from the government, from the Center for Disease Control...
The thing is, Guillain-Barré, if they called it polio, everybody'd freak out. Nobody'd take it. They scared people with polio. So as long as they call it something completely different and they say, oh, well, this thing, it has on a microbiological level, it's this much different than polio, so we can't call, it's insane. Nobody takes it.
Had indeed known about it. what would be your feeling?
They should have told us.
Did anyone ever come to you and say,
Watch this.
you
Look
know
at this
something,
liar.
fellas? The possibility of neurological damage if you get into a mass immunization program? No. No one ever did. No.
He knows that off the top of his head. But the one thing he didn't know, and he'd have to look into the literature to find out, is exactly, like, come on. This dude is fucking lying.
Do you know Michael Hapwick? Yes. Dr. Michael Hapwick directed the surveillance team for the swine flu program at the CDC. His job was to find... No. No one ever did. No. Ever come to you and say, you know something, fellas? There's the possibility of neurological damage if you get into a mass immunization program. No.
No.
No one ever did. No.
Look at how he
Do
blinks.
you
He
know
looks
Michael
away.
Hapwick? Yes. Dr. Michael Hapwick directed the surveillance team for the swine flu program.
Watch how
at the
mad this
CDC.
guy gets. You can
His
see it.
job was to find out what possible complications could arise from taking the shot and to report his findings to those in charge. Did you know ahead of time, Dr. Hapwick, that there had been case reports of neurological disorders, neurological illness, apparently associated
Look at, watch.
with the
Watch his
injection of
face.
influenza vaccine? Absolutely. You did? Yes. How'd you know that?
By review of the literature.
So you told your superiors, the men in charge of the swine flu immunization program, about the possibility of neurological disorders?
Absolutely.
What would you say if I told you that your superiors say that you never told them
Look at
about
his
the
face.
possibility of neurological complications?
That's nonsense. I can't believe that they would say that they did not know that there were neurological
Look how mad he
illnesses
is.
associated with influenza vaccination. That simply is not true. We did know that.
I've said that Dr. Hapwick had never told me of his feelings on this subject. And
He's so lying.
I guess you would have to make that assumption.
Then why does this report from your own agency, dated July
Look at him looking at her like, what the
list
fuck are you
neurological
doing?
complications as a possibility?
I think the
I think the,
consensus of the scientific community
Oh.
was that the evidence relating neurologic disorders to influenza immunization, that they did not feel that this association was a real one.
You didn't feel it was necessary to tell American people that information.
I think that over the years we've
Oh.
tried to inform the American people as fully as possible.
As part of informing Americans about the swine flu threat, Dr. Sensor's CDC also helped create the advertising to get the public to take the shot. Let me read to you from one of your own agency's memos planning the campaign to urge Americans to take the shot. The swine flu
at his
vaccine has
face.
been taken by many important persons, he wrote. Example, President Ford, Henry Kissinger,
Look at him.
Elton John, Muhammad Ali, Mary Tyler Moore, Rudolph Nureyev, Walter Cronkite,
Henry
Ralph
Ford,
Nader, Edward Kennedy, etc.,
Gerald
etc.
Ford, then Henry Kissinger.
I'm not familiar with that particular piece of paper, but I do know at least of that group, President Ford had taken the vaccination.
He
Did
didn't.
you talk to these people beforehand to find out if they plan to take the shot?
I did not know.
Did anybody?
I do not know.
Did you get permission to use their names in your campaign?
I do not know.
Mary, did you take a swine flu shot?
No, I did not.
Did you give them permission to use your name saying that you had or were going to?
Absolutely not. Never did.
Did you ask your own doctor about taking the swine flu shot?
Yes, and at the time he thought it might be a good idea. But I resisted it because I was leery of having the symptoms that sometimes go with that kind of inoculation.
So you didn't?
No, I didn't.
Have you spoken to your doctor since?
Yes.
And
He's delighted that I didn't take that shot.
you're in charge. Somebody's in charge.
Look at that fat
This
face.
is your advertising strategy that I have a copy of here.
Who's it signed by?
Who's it
This one's
signed by?
unsigned.
Oh, well then it's...
You'll acknowledge that it was your baby, so to speak.
It could have been
Oh,
from the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. It could be from CDC. I don't know. I'll be...
That's
happy
ad
to take,
hominem.
Responsibility for it.
It's been 3 years now since you fell ill with GBS. Right?
Right.
Has the federal government, in your estimation, played fair with you about your claim?
No, I don't think so. It seems to be dragging on and on and on. And really, no end in sight that I can see at this point.
With respect to the cases of Guillain-Barré, allegedly...
Former Secretary of HEW Joseph Califano, too, was disturbed that there was no end in sight. So a year and a half ago, he promised that Uncle Sam would cut the bureaucratic
I wonder what
red tape
happened to
of
Califano.
victims suffering from GBS and would pay up quickly.
We shouldn't hold them to an impossible or too difficult standard of proving that they were hurt. Even if we pay a few people a few $1,000s that might not have deserved it, I think justice requires that we promptly pay
Exactly.
those people who do deserve it.
Who's making the decision to be so hard-nosed about settling?
Hard-nosed.
Well, I assume the Justice Department is.
Griffin Bell before he left?
Well, the Justice Department agreed to the statement I made. It was cleared word for word with the lawyers in the Justice Department by my HEW lawyers.
And that statement said, in effect,
that statement said that we should pay Guillain-Barré claims without regard to whether the federal government was negligent if they resulted from the swine flu shot.
I think the government knows it's wrong.
If it drags out long enough, that people will just give up. Let it go.
what happened.
I am a little more adamant in my thoughts than my wife is, because I told Judy to take the shot. She wasn't going to take it, and she never had shots. And I'm mad with my government because they knew the facts, but they didn't release those facts because if they had released them, the people wouldn't have taken it. And they can come out tomorrow and tell me there's going to be an epidemic, and they can drop off like flies next to me. I will not take another shot that my government tells me to take.
Meantime, Judy Roberts and some 4,000 others like her are still waiting for their day in court.
Some crazy shit, isn't it? Stuff that makes you, the things that make you go, Scary. The government doesn't pay people. Like, they just print it. It's not like it costs the government any money. They could just give these 4,000 some people. If they gave all those people $1 million, like, it would be much less than we give Israel every year. It's just wild. It's just fucking insane to think about. And when do we see through it all? When do we unify and move past hating each other over stupid shit and realizing what's going on here? In the United States, GBS after seasonal influenza vacation is listed on the federal government's vacation injury table. On March 24th, 2021, after reviewing several post-marketing observational studies where an increased risk of Guillain-Barré syndrome was observed after 42 days following vacation with disaster vacation, Shingrix. Remember Shingrix? The FDA required safety label changes from the manufacturer GlaxoSmithKline to include warnings of the risk of Guillain-Barré. Again, just because you give a warning, like, it's so silly to think about that shit. Like, well, there was a warning on the label. And you're like, I didn't know what Guillain-Barré, because you wouldn't be able to say it unless you knew it. I didn't know what that shit did. GBS has been reported in association with COVID and may be a potential neurological complication of the disease. It's funny because GBS is what they tell you, the killer COVID is. It affects your respiratory system. It shuts down your muscles and your nervous system. And, like, it's the exact same thing. GBS has been reported as a very rare side effect of the Janssen and Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vacation. And in European medicines agencies, and the European Medicines Agency issued a warning to patients and healthcare providers. The incidence of GBS following the vacation with the Oxford AstraZeneca vacation was originally reported as being lower than the incidence of GBS following a COVID-19 infection. I mean, again, it's just such a crazy, like, the way they word this. More recent studies, however, found no measurable link between COVID-19 infection and GBS, while correlations with a first dose of AstraZeneca or Janssen vacations were still positive. Yeah, there's no association with it until you... Do you get it? They're saying there's no connection between COVID and GBS. However, there are connections between the vacation for COVID and GBS. That is so fucking weird. It's right here. It's like, it's not, this isn't hidden documentation. This isn't, I'm not some super sleuth. I'm not some medical professional giving out medical advice. I'm reading you what they want us to read. COVID-19 had been reported as causing peripheral neuropathy and more recently some evidence of aggravation of autoimmune disorders, including GBS. Do you not see how they're wording it? They're telling you that it's this. It's this. That's why you get sick a couple of weeks after getting it. Not that you were going to get sick anyway. Come on, how do you not see this? Drug-induced. Zymlinidine, an antidepressant, had a very favorable safety profile, but as a result of rare cases of GBS was withdrawn from the market. Oh my God. Shingles vaccine.
You don't have to. Talk to your healthcare provider today.
Oh, I missed that. History. It's not very much. Jean-Baptiste Octave Landry first described the disorder in 1859. It wasn't until 1916, or 57 years later, Georges Gillian, Jean-Alexander Barry, and Andre Stroll diagnosed 2 soldiers. Again, it just happens to be from soldiers who were probably forced to take a vacation or two. Diagnosed 2 soldiers with the illness and described the key diagnostic abnormality: albuminol-cytological dissociation of increased spinal fluid protein concentration, but a normal cell count. In 1916, huh? In 1916, they were counting cells, accessing spinal fluid and counting. What process was available back in 1916 to confidently do such a thing? Do you guys think that's an interesting question, or do you just skip over it and think, yeah, 1916, man, that was the year of so many. Think about what they're talking about. In 1916, they were counting cells. They were accessing spinal fluid and counting cells comparatively. What are we fucking talking about? Do you know, like, how powerful the microscope has to be for you to be able to see cells, let alone count them? That's just, these are those little pieces in history that nobody really talks about that always really get to me. When do we not realize, like, this shit doesn't make any sense? Whether you agree with me or not, or you think I'm a kook or whatever it is. 1916? Are you serious? I would love to see the microscope from 1916 that was capable of counting cells. We're maintaining and, checking and comparing cell counts and all that. What science was available in 1916 that allowed this kind of shit to take place? Look into the history of dry ice if you want to blow your mind. Talk about something that just doesn't make any sense. How the fuck were they doing that? What machine processes did we have that could, if the refrigerant is the dry ice, how did you get the dry ice to begin with? It just doesn't. They just sort of, and they yada yada over that, but it's a real chicken and the egg kind of situation, because how were they manufacturing the cold to be able to freeze the carbon dioxide under a pressurized, in a pressurized situation, and not only do it but mass produce it like they did? It just, how does this work? It was accidentally discovered trying to do something else. Can't remember what it was, but so how did they manufacture the process to manufacture dry ice? What were they doing in the 1830s or 40s or whatever it was when they first decided, How does this not fascinate you? Like, this is for my brother-in-law, where it's who he's really smart and believes what he's supposed to believe. And it's like, all right, so let's talk about this thing. How do you think the microscopes worked back in those times, and how did they, where did they come from? How did they manufacture them? How did they mass produce them? Where did you get your microscopes from back in 1800s? And like, what was the microscope store? And then how did they operate? Like, the microscope store had a lot of had a lot of different things. What was the supply line like back then? How did they get the store shelves full of microscopes? And then, of course, how did people get to the stores? And more of that crazy kind of bullshit that I'm crazy for asking. How did they the idea of, like, you rode your horse into town and you parked it, and then you went inside this Greek fucking marble, this just monstrosity that were just everywhere, and they were somehow lit up inside by, like, can you imagine how dark it would have been? Once you get to, like, the second floor inside of a room, it's pitch black. And yet these huge places with multiple stories, how were they all lit up? C. Miller Fisher described the variant that bears his name in 1956. It took till 1956. British neurologist Edwin Bickerstaff described the encephalitis type in 1951 and made further contributions with another paper in 1957. It's just so funny to think about these things. To think about how random people in all different parts of the world could just put forth this information. He wrote a paper. Yeah, he wrote a paper, and that paper, amongst all the other papers, this one is one that just stood the test of time. It's so fucking goofy. Further, Guillaume had reported on some of these features before their full description in 1938. Further subtypes have been described since then, such as the form featuring pure ataxia and the type causing pharyngeal cervical brachial weakness. The axonal subtype was first described in 1986. Diagnostic criteria were developed in the late 1970s after the series of cases associated with the swine flu vaccination. That's what they were associated with. There weren't any cases, like, it wasn't happening. The only time it would happen would be with people who were directly associated with some sort of vacation program, like soldiers. But prior to this, it just wasn't a thing that was just lots of people just had it and this, that, and the other. The 76 vacation program, suddenly it's just all over the place. And now it's documented. It's documented, and like it's a really weird sort of narrative we're given. These were refined in 1990. The case definition was revised by the Brighton Collaboration for Vacation Safety in 2009, but is mainly intended for research. Plasma exchange was first used in 1978, and its benefit was confirmed in larger studies in 1985. The fuck does that have to do with it? Intravenous immunoglobulins were introduced in 1988, and studies in the early 1990s demonstrated that they were no less effective than plasma exchange. It's really weird. All right, and that's it. That's the history of it. That's all you get. No history for you. That's so crazy, man. This is just such a crazy. The Brighton House Collaboration is a nonprofit global vacation safety research network based in Basel, Switzerland. It is named after the city in England where the idea was first formulated. Formation in the year 2000. It's an MPO. Purpose: safest, effective vacations based on rigorous science to enhance the science of vacation research by providing standardized, validated, and objective methods for continuous monitoring of safety profiles and by asserting benefit-risk ratios. These methods are, in turn, recognized and recommended for use by international regulatory and public health agencies. Leader, President Jan Bonhoeffer. The history, it's going to be a good one. The Brighton House Collaboration was launched in 2000, although the idea of the collaboration started 1 year earlier, following a presentation by Bob Chen at an international scientific vacation conference in Brighton. In his talk, he stressed the need to improve vacation safety monitoring by developing internationally accepted standards. All right, I'm done. Go check out the links in the description. Get your free download. Go watch Hollywoodism. Have a great day. Pedophiles, kill yourself.